Hello, Athena here. One of the topics I wanted to talk about is how to deal with negative emotions. Now, we've all got negative emotions, and humans in general don't want to feel bad. So what do you do when you feel a negative emotion? How do you manage to cope with it? Now, one of the key things to be aware of is that resistance of your emotions is usually what causes further psychological harm. So the key word is resistance. The more you resist a feeling, especially a negative feeling, the more powerful it will become, and it will try and sort of come back at some point in the future at an even bigger intensity. So if you want to be able to deal with your negative emotions successfully, then you have to stop resisting them. Now, what are some negative emotions? Let's really think about it. Sadness is one. Anger might be another. Fear, grief. It can be a lot of other things, such as shame and disappointment. Our ego in general likes pleasure. Our ego likes to be happy. And for that reason, most of us will find ways to block out the negative emotions as they arise. And there are many ways of blocking out negative emotions. It could be that you distract yourself by daydreaming, by watching TV, by watching a film, by reading a book. It could be that you numb yourself with alcohol or drugs or eating too much food. There are many ways to deal with negative emotions by avoiding them. And avoiding them means that you push them down. You find a way to push them down and keep them away so you don't feel them. Because, like I said before, the ego doesn't like feeling anything negative. The ego wants to be happy. So what I would suggest is that if you want to deal with your negative emotions, then the solution for that is to actually fully feel your emotions. Now, that's quite an easy thing to say, but it isn't actually that simple, and it isn't as easy as it sounds, because everything in our body and in our mind will fight against feeling down. It will fight against feeling fear, because the minute the emotion arises, you just want to run. It's like the fight or flight response when you're scared. You're either going to fight it or you're going to run. You don't want to feel scared, so you're just going to do something to get away from it. And in a way, it's the same thing with feelings of sadness or grief. When we are feeling low, when we are in a lot of pain, we want something to lessen the pain. We want something that helps us escape the pain. But unfortunately, generally the tendency to avoid emotional suffering means that eventually what it actually does is it causes mental suffering. It causes mental illness. So what is the solution for that? The solution for that is to actually allow yourself to feel these feelings that you have that you do not like. I know it's not something that you want to do. Trust me, I don't either. Nobody does. But I have found that the more I allow myself in my own personal life to actually feel the unpleasant feelings that come up, the better I feel after, the more calm I feel after. It's about being mindful. You have to completely observe every part of your body. That's so important. You have to be mindful of where you feel the sadness and where you feel the fear. Is it in your chest? Is it in your tummy? Are your hands shaking? Are you sweating? Where do you feel it in your body? Be mindful of where the sensations are. The best thing for dealing with your negative emotions is to actually allow yourself to be vulnerable and feel your emotions. And talk about your emotions. Talk about them. Write about them. Do a video about them. Anything to be in the present and talk about how you are feeling now. There is nothing wrong with saying, I feel sad. I feel scared. People are forced to think that it is not okay to show weakness, that it is not okay to be vulnerable. And especially for men, it is even harder. Everybody is allowed to feel vulnerable. Everybody is allowed to have a bad time. Everybody's allowed to have negative feelings and fear and sadness. And the funny thing is that for those of us who actually had quite a bad time in our childhood, so for those of us who had some sort of child abuse or neglect, we would have learned certain defenses in our childhood that will have helped us survive in a sense. We would have had a lot of coping mechanisms. It might have been to be in denial of what you truly felt. It might have been to pretend that you're all tough when you're really not. But what you have to be aware of is that those coping mechanisms usually follow you into your adulthood. And it's very important to be aware of that. It is very important to understand that those coping mechanisms that you may have had in your childhood that actually helped you will no longer serve you now that you are an adult. So you have to learn to slowly let go of those defenses. We have to understand that we cannot control our life and we have to remove resistance. Let's think a little bit about what ways we might use to resist certain negative feelings. Like what kind of things would somebody do? I can give you some examples. One of the things is that you could pretend that everything's fine when it really isn't. Another thing would be that you may hide or suppress the feelings that you have. You might deny that you are feeling a certain way. In my case, it was always that I would distract myself as much as possible or comfort eat. What else do? You probably manipulate. You try and convince yourself otherwise, that things really aren't as bad as they are. You're in denial. And when we are suffering, our bodies tighten up. They're not relaxed. And when you do hold it all in your body, this is what causes health problems. Because mental thoughts, emotional thoughts, can cause psychosomatic illness. Be very mindful of not going into your mind and not being in a fantasy world when you are feeling down. It is so important to find ways to cope with actually feeling the sadness. Maybe it is that you tell yourself, okay, I'm feeling sad now, but this will pass. It might be that you just tell yourself something comforting that will help you through that phase of fear or pain. I may be feeling horrible today, but there's always tomorrow. Tomorrow might be a better day. Find ways to cope, but feel your feelings. I think the hardest thing is to resist your old coping mechanisms. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. I hope you found the video helpful. Please click subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Feel free to like my videos and feel free to comment. Take care and see you very soon.